Well, Jack, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We really appreciate you giving up your time, and there are so many different topics to delve into in the course of the next 45 minutes or so. Let's go back though more to the start. So when you started your role in the job that you're in now, so you left your role as chief executive of British Swimming, basically had the same job, really, really good spell in charge as well, really successful Tokyo Olympic Games for you. You come back to your sport, essentially, UK athletics, and at the time, honestly, looked like a bit of a poison chalice, given the turnover of CEOs in the years previous. How different is the organisation now, do you think, compared to when you took it over?
I'm probably not quite the right person to. I hope it's different. I mean, I've tried really hard to make it a different organisation. I think it takes time, and the governing body is always a governing body, but I would say I've wanted it to be a different organisation, and I'm trying hard to make it a different organisation. I hope it's moved. I hope it has moved. I think it takes time, and governing bodies are governing bodies. They are kind of what they are. So I hope it feels different. I'm certainly trying to make it feel different.
I mean, you won't want to throw anyone under the bus, but in the most truthful way that you can put it to us, when you did finally get your feet under the table, I know that you went in eyes wide open. You would have known, roughly what the state of the organisation was at the time. But once you had your initial briefings and you got the full sense of it, did it feel like an intimidating job? Did you start wondering did you start thinking it's going to be a big job to turn this around?
I think, and I've been quite open about this, I think it was in a worse state than I thought. And I think that in the first months, I'd meet people who I knew and I thought I knew well, and I'd say, how are you? And they would vent for about an hour, and it would just all come out, I mean, all this stuff that they wanted to say. And these were people I knew well within the sport. And I think you realised the trauma, there was a sense of trauma, I would say, and it's difficult. And I think there were a whole bunch of stuff wrapped up in that. I think it was changes of leadership, some really traumatic things had happened. I mean, I was a very close friend of Neil Black. Neil Black had died, and people hadn't got the chance to say goodbye to him. So some really deep things had happened to people, and people had changed, and people had left jobs, and people had disappeared, and there was a lot of anger and a lot of upset and trauma. So I was genuinely taken aback by that. I hadn't, and there was a lot of animosity too, in all sorts of ways. So it was, and at the same time, it was collapsing financially. So it was definitely, because there was all this, people were going through all this stuff, and then you were thinking, well, the business is a mess. And how do you kind of staunch this, all this pent-up anger and angst and frustration and finger pointing and stuff, and then you've got to try and sort out a really thorny business problem. So it was tougher than I thought, definitely, and it was a lot tougher than I thought, much tougher than I thought. And I almost thought, I can't. I had a few conversations with my wife at that time, and I said, I didn't think it was going to be like this, So it was tough.
Yeah, because I mean, for yourself, as a European champion, as a world medalist, as a Commonwealth medalist, I guess you probably would have looked at this when you went into governance roles and thought, that's actually pretty much near my dream job. I'd like to get back to my own sport, maybe, but maybe not. but it wasn't just the financial issues, was it? There were scandals regarding coaches and safeguarding. There was just a lot of work to do and a lot of cleaning up to be done.
Yeah, I think so. And I feel huge sympathy for everyone. That's the thing. And it's difficult for me because when I probably like a lot of athletes, I retired a bit fed up with a bit of, I don't know anyone who's retired happily, put it like that, as naturally. So I was like, I didn't do what I wanted to do. So I was a bit kind of fed up when I retired. And then I deliberately, when I went off initially to work for Adidas and sporting goods, I was quite keen to kind of almost get away from athletics. So I'd actually worked really hard on my career so that I'd broaden my career, so I wasn't just an athlete. And I kind of thought, I'd had various thoughts along the way about whether to come back to athletics or not, and I decided not to. So it was a big decision to come back to the sport. A really big decision for me to come back to the sport, because I thought also I'm not particularly young, so if I come back to the sport now, that's probably it. You know, I can't go many other places afterwards. So there was that in there too. So it was a big decision. And probably also what I realised when I came back was I absolutely love this sport. I mean, I really do. Because I'd forgotten. So in a weird way, I love the sport, and it's rekindled my love for the sport. But I've also, the job has been a real challenge. So it's been a real mixed bag of emotions in many ways.
And is that a double-edged sword? You know, the privilege of supporting a sport that is, you know, your sport from your whole life, but then also caring more. Yeah. You know, is it hard to sort of see it just as a job when it's your sport?
I think it probably isn't something. It's difficult, and I really want it to work out, and I want it to work out for the athletes, and I want it to work out for the coaches and the volunteers and the club. So it is. Yeah, it does. There've been a few sleepless nights because you just do care, and you want it to work out for people. And you know, I know coaches and I know athletes and loads of people, and you know, you just want it to be a good sport for them all. And there's so many mixed emotions in there. Things that happen, you think, oh my goodness, why did that happen? And things you think could that not have happened. So there's definitely a lot of emotions in there.
But you had a great track record. Rich touched on it before you came back to athletics, if you like, with those roles at triathlon and swimming. Is there anything you've taken from those two sports that you think has equipped you super well for this role?
I think, well, probably loads of stuff. I mean, I think, lots. I mean, they're different. I mean, I think what I tried to do is, there's kind of almost like 3 or 4 big bits to these jobs. One is the governance bit. One is the kind of performance and all of that. And then there's all the events and commercialisation. And if you've got it, there's also the grassroots bit. And the trick is to kind of work on all of them. And what often happens in these roles is the bit that takes over your life is governance, you know, and the governance agenda expands and expands, and then you don't get enough time on performance and enough time on the sport. So I work really, really hard, and I think I learned that in the other 2 jobs, to keep the governance agenda under control. So I literally try and spend no more than a third of my time on governance. And it's the thing I say to people, you don't win at governance. There is no win in governance. All you do is it's what I call, which you would understand, Hannah, you hide in the pack. You stay on the pace with governance. You don't drop off, but there's no point in going to the front of the pack on governance, you know. So I've sort of learnt all of that really, which is quite useful. So you try and manage the governance stuff, and you try and have your outward-facing energy for performance and the building of the sport and the commercialisation and those sorts of things.
And one of the key parts for all of those things, Jack, often a lot of it comes back to money, unfortunately. And I know you've spoken before about how UK Athletics was heading for bankruptcy when you took over, part of that being a TV money issue and all this money that goes into, I guess, sort of the sort of top tier sports that we have in the country, the team sports. We'll come back to that in a moment. But on top of that, the TV money, why was the organisation losing money? Why was it in such a bad financial place?
There's a virtuous circle for events that can also spiral downwards. So for good events, you want a good broadcast platform, you want good ticket sales, and you want commercial. So you want full stadiums on TV with good sponsorship. And if you lose any one of those 3, it becomes difficult. And we lost 3 of the 3. So there's no TV contract, commercial revenues dried up, ticket sales dried up. So suddenly, for relatively small organisations, the your P&L switches, and quite quickly you can lose a lot of money. And especially, which is why events on scale are difficult. So that combination of factors was leading to the losses, and also probably the cost base of the organisation. So the things that were going in organisation had been built in a time when all that stuff was going quite well. So your income drops dramatically, and your cost base is too high. So so they were the main things.
No, and I think there's a school of thought that we were riding that wave from 2012 to 2017, and there's people in our sport that would say we kind of weren't nimble enough off the back of that to kind of have a different approach to sort of when we're not hosting a major event. Do you think that was an element, or do you think you have to be hosting major events? Or?
I think so. And some of these things, there's no need to point the fingers at individuals. Some of these things were across things. So the changes in the broadcast market, you can read about, so the broadcast market has fundamentally changed. So, there aren't the level of TV rights for sports like track and field athletics. They're just gone, So the broadcast market has changed fundamentally. And then the pandemic really knocked the stuffing out of people going to events and things like that. So there were things that were happening outside the control of any individual at UK Athletics, but the cumulative effect of those things really impacted on UK Athletics finances.
When it comes to broadcast deals, when it comes to sponsorship, does athletics have a bit of a problem in the way that it's neither niche nor top tier? It's always sort of exists in a sort of middle level where it's more popular in some of the more sort of the less mass participation sports, maybe until the Olympics come around, and then it's like number one priority. So it kind of means sometimes I feel like it's a sport. I've said this to Hannah a number of times, but it feels like it's sort of taken for granted. So it's a little bit harder to generate to compete with.
It's really interesting with brands and products and things, and it doesn't matter where you are, but if you get caught in the middle, it's a difficult place to be. And I often say, which is why one of my very, very first strategies within the first few days of the job was we've got to go get the Diamond League right, because and that's no disrespect to other events, but we've got one shop window every year that has a chance, and that's the Diamond League. So what you said there, my immediate thing was we've got to make the Diamond League great, because that is a chance of something that could jump from being a mid-tier to a higher tier event, and that's absolutely the strategy with the Diamond League, that we need to make that bigger and better and noisier every single year. And we need to elevate it at all things. You have to make, because that is a thing that could become a big thing. It's not a big thing yet, but it could become a big thing. And, we get it on a weekend when the only other major event is the Open Golf, which is a completely different target audience, different bit of the country. It's after Wimbledon and it's before stuff. So we have to make that event bigger and better every single year, and then it's got a chance of being something that transcends. It's like, I can't stand Formula One, and I've no interest whatsoever, but Silverstone is a kind of a thing, and it's a big weekend, and we need that effect for the Diamond League. We need people saying, oh, it's the athletics this weekend, can I go? And not just the track and field audience. So getting that event right for me is key, because it gives you that chance to have a big hook that you can hang things on.
So how do you take it to the next level then, Jack? Because
I think there's lots of things we can't tell you everything, but we've got
you got lots of plans. Because I wanted to, the thing is though, Jack, I was thinking that when after London 2012, it was like when it's called the anniversary games, I feel like it still had the momentum, and then because of the conversions into the football stadium, it kind of lost momentum, didn't it? So we've been trying to get it back to that same level again.
I would argue that if you look at each of the last three, we've been back in the stadium 3 years, and it's got bigger and better each time. So this event sold out quicker. We had a major sponsor. I personally think this year it was the best. And also I actually thought the feedback we've got, because we do net promoter scores, was the best this year. So and the rate of tickets. So definitely it's getting bigger and better. But there are lots of things we can do, and we do have plans to make it bigger and better. Can't tell you all of them.
We look forward to it.
But we just want to keep working at it and taking ideas from other sports. Obviously, you see, the other thing is it's not a UK athletics event, it's an athletic ventures event. So it's London Marathon and Great Run. So they're, right behind it, and they've got a ton of ideas, and we've got some ideas. So we just need to make it, right now you'd say, what's the best athletics meet in the world? And probably people would say Zurich, but we need to make it better than Zurich. No disrespect to audit, it needs to be the event. And I think actually it's really interesting, but the number of people who came to me last year and said this is the best athletics meet in the world I was a bit taken aback, whether that's Noah Lyles or, Femke Bol, or everyone wants to be there. So we're rebuilding it. It's getting a kind of sort of slightly more iconic mythical status, and we just got to keep working on it.
Well, in sports governance, and I know you broke your role down, but like this whole strategizing of how to bolster UK athletics and how to kind of make it robust. You talked about trying to spend only a third of your time on governance. Events is such a big part as well. How do you ring fence that and then ensure that while you're trying to build this thing to improve performance and improve UK athletics, that you don't lose track of kind of the performance side of your job as well?
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, I think so. With the events, the advantage we've got in the creation of Athletic Ventures, it feels for me like we've got this great team around us now. So we have it's just brilliant that the skills and expertise that we're getting from London Marathon and Great Run is just fantastic. So there it feels like we've got. And this, we've got some fantastic events people at UK Athletics, but we were quite limited in resource. But suddenly you've got all this extra kind of firepower and events and marketing and data and, all those sorts of things. So in a way that helps because we've got probably 10 times the resource and events through that partnership. And they're really good at it, So, and we've got some good people. So I'm not.
And passionate. It's not like you just bought on an events company. It's two of the most successful.
So in that sense, having that there, I don't have to be at the forefront of that, and we're working really well together. So for some things, Paul Foster from the Great Run Company leads. For some things, Hugh Brazier leads, and some things I lead. So we've got a really high level of trust. And we let each other lead in certain areas. So I don't have to do it all. They, in fact, they're better at a lot of stuff than me. So I just let them get on with it and keep out of the way, So that helps. And then that gives me a bit more space elsewhere.
And just while we're talking about that, Athletics Ventures and the bid for the 2029 World Championships, you talk about how athletes come to you and say, this is just the most amazing meet. And we do crowds well, don't we? We fill stadiums. The atmosphere is brilliant. And do you think that's a big part of it as well? And it is. I mean, you say about making this like an iconic event. It kind of is. I think for everyone that lived London 2012, it's an iconic event, isn't it? Every year, this annual event, being able to go back into the stadium. Yes, it's not quite the same stadium, but it's still got the ghosts of London 2012 there.
No, definitely. I mean, it's going to be a tough bid to win because the World Athletics will issue evaluation process and evaluation criteria. So we're going to have to put in a really good bid, and it's going to be a very competitive bid too. So and the world's moved on a lot in terms of bidding and what people want. So we're going to give it a really good shot, but we're not underestimating the challenge. So it'll be a hard bid to win and be brilliant to get it.
Do you have the advantage, I guess, of Birmingham 2026 Europeans? You're going to get a really good opportunity to show what this partnership can do. Yeah,
we hope so. We really hope so. And again, that'll be the first big event we've done. Well, that'll be the first kind of major games we've done through Athletic Ventures. So it's exciting. It's a bit scary because it will be. I mean, everyone's looking at it because it's a different delivery model. We've sort of focused on some different things. We're trying to bring some other elements to it. So, we really want it to go well.
Yeah, and of course the London Stadium is completely set up, isn't it? It's a slightly more easy way in the fact that you've got, it's set up for Premier League football every week. So in terms of putting on a broadcast spectacle, it's a lot more simpler to do, isn't it, than the Alexander Stadium, despite all the refurbs that's happened.
Yeah, I think it'll be really good next year. I can't wait for the Europeans. I think some of the plans developing, I think will be really, really good.
Yeah. One of the big positives that's happened this year for UK athletics is posting that surplus. So I know it wasn't huge money, but first time since 2017, which must come as a huge relief, but also justification of all the hard work that's been put in to sort of turn the organisation around. I guess, do you look at it as a sort of a stepping stone, or what is the potential, do you think, for UK athletics? Because I wonder whether, a lot of organisations have a project, they pick a year and they'll say Project 2030 or something like that. Is it sort of thing that you guys look at?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so totally. We absolutely, it's just to kind of, the first phase was to get us back on stable ground, and it feels like we're on stable ground. Now we need to look forward, and I think there's things we've had to cut, we didn't want to cut. What do we want it to be a steady rebuild, so we don't want it to be cyclical. So our ambition is a steady rebuild. So, and step by step we support the sport to rebuild. So it's not, for me, a stable UK athletic isn't about UK athletics, it's kind of about the sport. So part of my thinking is we want to make sure the sport thrives, and how can we do our bit of the jigsaw. And we're spending quite a bit of time this winter on that. So we're doing 2 or 3 bits of work. One is about our medium-term vision and plan, and then we've got some thoughts around that. But we're also doing a really interesting partnership work with the rest of the sector, with the home nations, and with London Marathon, Great Run, Park Run, and Daily Mile, around a vision for our sport. So that's not, UK Athletics has a role in that, but it's not all UK Athletics. And I think as a sport, and this is a total sport, I don't think we've had a cohesive enough vision for our sport. And I think other sports, cycling have done that better, and the result has been more investment going into cycling and athletics, right, globally. So we're going to try and do some work around that. So a stable UK athletics is one bit of a jigsaw, but we want to play a role in the future of the sport.
Mm-hmm. I think you just look back, and the way you've spoken in the last 20-25 minutes, like the complexity of what you guys try and do is massive, and all those bits that you guys are trying to support and you're trying to develop. And I think, if we look back at sort of the elite, the performance side of it, and if you were from another nation, you'd think, wow, Britain have got Seb Coe at the very top of the tree here as a president of World Athletics. For anyone from a different nation, what does that mean for UK athletics? Is there a relationship there? Is he someone that you can call on for advice, and is that an asset to UK athletics?
Yeah, I think so. I think athletics, like you were saying earlier, we love our athletics in this country, so that, which is good. And I think, Seb's a really fair man, and Seb and John, because I see them as John Ridge in that as chief exec. So they're really fair, and they would never favour us. They couldn't. They'd put a lot by their own integrity. So they're absolutely, if you look at the integrity unit they've set up and what they're trying to do with World Athletics. So in some ways, what I'm trying to do at UK Athletics mirrors that. It's trying to re-establish, make it profitable, and have the right integrity. So I think it's good they're there, but they're not. They're there, and it's great. But. They're not going to, when it comes to the bid, it's straight down the line. So I think it's good, and I think it's also good we've got people in different roles, not just World Athletics, and we're respected as a nation for what we've given to the sport over a number of years. So it is helpful, definitely, and culturally they get what we're trying to do, and it's brilliant. We welcome them back to the Diamond League, those guys, and they're excited about that. And I kind of said to Seb, well, it's your stadium. You can come in here anytime, So there's a good relationship in that sense, and that. But I think when it comes to decisions and things, it's pretty straight down the line. I think they're keen on innovation, and we're keen on innovation too. So I'm hoping that helps. And obviously our innovation is a partnership with Athletic Ventures and things like that. And hopefully if we can get that right, that starts to develop innovation a bit.
That business sense innovation there of you guys collaborating with London Marathon and Great Run. Like, I'm sure that there are other nations out there looking at that thinking, oh, actually, this is, we talk about sustainable ways to host championships with the footprints and stuff like that. But even from, like you say, resource and knowledge sharing, like you guys have figured something really good out there.
Yeah, we're getting there. I mean, I think it's really interesting because, if you think about it, athletics and running developed in parallel universes for about 40 years or so. And you can actually, road running and the marathon scene and track and field athletics, I mean, they've just gone on, they've been completely divergent paths, and I mean, part of me respects that, because you could argue a fun runner in park run's got not much to do with field event athletics, but I think it's a pity that for the last 40 plus years they have developed in separate paths, and I think there are opportunities for partnerships which we're trying to explore with Athletic Ventures. I think we're only just at the start of it, and I'm really hopeful that what we'll deliver in the next few years, people will see the benefits of it. So we're quite ambitious for it, and they're quite ambitious, and we'd like to do a lot more. We'd like to do more events. We'd like to showcase the sport in more innovative ways and work with the sport to do bigger and better things across track and field athletics.
And being joined up, it makes so much sense, and there's so many skills there, and there's so much potential, isn't there? We talk a lot about the business innovation there and what's changed over time. Innovation generally in athletics at the moment is the talking point, because we've seen all these new events pop up. We've had Grand Slam track, which sort of maybe has died a death. We don't really know. Athlos is going at a much slower pace. You've got wild things on the side like the enhanced games, which is just seems ridiculous. In terms of an innovation generally, is there too much of approach of going like trying to reinvent the wheel a little bit, where maybe there are more subtle differences that could really enhance the sport instead?
So when I stopped running, I went to work at Adidas, and I spent the next 10 years in product, and you learned a huge amount. So for me, innovation is a big word, and I think it's often poorly used. So for me, if you think about it, it's about product and brand, and again, I probably talk about Adidas or Nike, so I'll try and use a Nike product. So on this time, the Nike Pegasus is the Nike Pegasus is the Nike Pegasus. And you'd say so what great brands do is they evolve their core product, and what they're really clear about is what are the compelling elements of the product that they can dial up or dial down or evolve. So I'm a fan of product evolution. So you have to understand what is authentic, and you have to make it relevant, and you have to. That's what I like. So how the core product of athletics is not far away. I mean, over 9 million people watch Keely win in Paris, and the number. So when when we get it right, it cuts through. So you just have to understand what are the elements that made you get it right, and how do you dial those up, and how do you evolve the core product? So I'm a great believer in that. So that's going to come back to Diamond League. The things we want to evolve with Diamond League, then probably the next thing is the national championship. What are the things we've got? How do we make them more authentic, more relevant to a bigger audience? So doing something completely new over here. The hardest thing is to do something completely new to a new target audience. The best forms of innovation are to evolve your product to a new audience, so yeah, I'm a big supporter of that, but I also think, and the other thing is, I think it's a minimum of 3 to 5 years. There's nothing. It's very hard, and again, you look at all the things that have been successful in recent times. Look at the success Formula One's had, and that's evolved over time, hasn't it? And there've been different elements on the journey. If you look at things like Wimbledon or stuff like that, or someone was telling me about the Masters in golf, and apparently the Masters in golf is now 4 times more valuable than the next nearest golf. And you can see that's, you could kind of see the journey it's been on. So I think it is about, for me, it's about evolution. And the other factor as well is there's a really simple thing. It's called the calendar. So you can't just do something over here because so you have to take what's in the calendar and you have to try and make what you've got better and evolve that. So I see it as that.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and I think it's so important the work you guys are doing on that side of things and how it is going to ripple back down through the sport, as you were saying. And I think if we turn our attention back to that high performance environment, and you will know it was all straight there after Tokyo, no gold medals, and as a group and as a company, what was your reaction to that? I mean, there was obviously a big backlash.
Yeah, I think, we were disappointed, it's the bottom line. And if you talk to Paula or the performance team, we were disappointed. And probably if you talk to some of the athletes, particularly if it's the athletes, they'd be disappointed. So I think, there's obviously context. The 10 medals in Budapest and the 10 medal in Paris were amazing. And that were the best 2 back-to-back world champions we had. So, and obviously then we got 5 individual medals in Tokyo, which was great, and probably some they were great medals, and we didn't get medals in the relay, so that we're obviously hugely disappointed about that. There's a lot of resetting going on, debriefing, and you will learn the lessons and we'll come back. Just having spent time with everyone, there's not a single one in that team, either from staff side or athlete side, who isn't hurting and doesn't want to come back and show the world. So our job is to bounce back, and I think we'll do that. We need to bounce back hard in the relays. We need to build on the individual success. Under 23s and under 20s in Europe went well. There's some great talent out there, so we need to build. We don't need to overreact. That's the other thing. We don't need to overreact. This is the first kind of performance blip we've had for a few years, and we just need to rebuild on it, and there's no reason we couldn't. We've still got relay success under 20s and under 23s, so we just need to make sure we hone in on that and amplify that and get it right next time. So I think I'm really confident in the team, and I think also really confident in the athletes as well, the great athletes. We'll learn and we'll come back.
My favourite thing is you extrapolate out to top 8 and we were still 4th. I think if you extrapolate to top 8 and points, yes, we still finished 4th, which I
exactly. No, I also think it was. I think it was tough for everyone, but it was pretty tough. And Keely made the point about 5 years, 5 global. It's extraordinary, that, isn't it? So we've had five global championships in 5 years. I also think, the athletes everyone knew what they were going into Tokyo, but it was a tougher environment. But hey, that was the same for everyone. So it's not an excuse as such. But we absolutely have to come back, and everyone knows that.
Yeah. And I'm not allowed to talk about Jake Whiteman anymore because I talk about him too much. But on this topic, I think there's been like a misconception publicly about repercussions for funding. There was a big knee-jerk kind of like, well, does this mean we're going to lose all our funding for LA? And I think it's
on social media. This is
on social media.
Yeah, no, I think we get 4-year funding. We get 4-year funding through to LA, and that settlement's done as a 4-year funding. Do we have to explain what we've done and what we're doing and the kind of bumps in the road? Absolutely. So we will be obviously Paul and the team presenting back to the board, presenting back to UK Sport. So we have to justify it and we have to show what we might be doing differently. But there's no, the funding is stable to LA. Yeah. The things that are more likely to not funding off actually are major governance stuff. That could have an impact. So I think probably that UK sport, and they're right to do it. They would want assurance about us as an organisation and the performance programme. So that's definitely a recurrent theme, and it's public money, so we have to justify what we're doing and what we're spending it on.
I know you've touched on it already, and in other interviews as well. But one of the big disappointments was the relays, and obviously we've been so successful at that over the past years. It's always been one of GB's strengths as well. Why do you think it wasn't quite at the level in Tokyo? Was it? I mean, is there ever a little bit of complacency in there or not?
No, I think you're probably better asking the performance team that than me, and also if I know anything about anything, it's possibly middle distance running. So me talking about relays and sprints, I can see people looking at me like, what do you know about that? So I would, in the context of that, I would say that I think people are disappointed, and I do think complacency is a really difficult word. I don't think. I don't believe any of our athletes are complacent at all. I think they all work really hard and they train really hard and they're really committed. I mean, maybe there was a bit of underestimation of what others might be doing and what was expected of them at the end of a long season. So I wouldn't. I think complacency is too strong a word. But all I can say is I know they're really disappointed and they're desperate to turn it around next time.
Mm-hmm. And this week when we're talking to you, the next funding cycle for the year ahead has been announced for the athletes that have been picked that get the different levels of funding. Of course, it always provides a lot of debate. I guess the message is always the door is not closed, in a route to LA.
I wouldn't want to comment on any individual athlete or any individual person.
No, it won't going to be that unfair on you, Jack.
No. And I always I think no, it's not, and it's a long journey. This sport, isn't it? You mentioned Jake Whiteman. It's a long journey. So you have to make judgment. You have to make tough judgments with the resources you want, and you have to make tough decisions. But there has to be a huge amount of empathy, and you have to try and find ways to support, even though you're constrained in your budgets. And you're right. No, the doors. No, and also it's. We've all seen it. You can sort of in a way do Keeley, which is come in young and grow, or Kelly Holmes or Mo Farah. So it's a hard and you can have under success at one event and then you can become a marathon runner. So there are a lot of variables in it. So I'd love to support more athletes more of the time, but we have to manage with what we've got and the awards we've got and make tough decisions.
Mm-hmm. And it's a long time till LA, but it's still, that's what's always talked about. We've still got the Beijing World Championships to come in a couple of years' time as well. But I mean, just generally, the energy inside UK athletics at the moment, does it feel quite exciting in terms of where GB are at?
I think it was. Obviously, everything's been really. From where the organisation is, everything has been building in a steady way, positive. We're not getting ahead of ourselves. It's like you said, step by step. We do it step by step. Just keep moving it forward. And yes, Tokyo was a bit of a disappointment, but there's so much good stuff going on at the moment that we're just moving forward on lots of fronts, whether that's the performance programme, the juniors, the futures programme, the athlete engagement. There's other things coming out. We've got quite a few positive announcements coming out next few months. Obviously, next year, it's going to be fantastic. We've got the indoors, we've got the outdoor champs, we've got Diamond League, we've got Commonwealth Games, we've got Europeans, we've got our World Champs bid, we've got the Ultimate World Championships. So it looks like the sports, we've got a massive opportunity in front of us, and for a lot of athletes there are lots of opportunities next year. If you're a coach right now and an athlete, looking at next year, and there are some really, really good opportunities at lots of different levels. A European Championships in Birmingham at home, the first time we've staged that. and then also the Commonwealth Games for some, and I think it's so I think, and there's some fantastic rivalries to look forward to. I mean, just you know the events better than me, but just run through some of those events and some of the rivalries, and look at the women's 8, the men's 15, the women's 1, 2. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff, isn't there, where you just go, wow, can't wait. So I think the mood's I would say the mood is really, really positive. And I also think the sport's on the up too. So that's not just about UK athletics. Just last week we hosted the EBU and the European Broadcast Union, and the number of broadcasters who came. I thought there was going to be a group about 60 people in the room, and these are all the top broadcasters across Europe, BBC and everyone, and they're like right behind the sport. So the sport, I think the sport's on the up, and I know there's challenges and there's lots of work to do, and always have empathy with clubs and coaches and volunteers, but I do think the sport's on the up, and I think we're going to have a good few years.
And I think I'm not going to commit the commentator's curse by retiring you early, but you said this might be one of the last roles you do. And again, I'm not going to ask you to commit to when you'll step aside, but when you do finish in this role as CEO of UK Athletics, like what would success look like to you?
So I'd like a really healthy sport. I'd like the sport to thrive. I mean, it's funny, I'm a granddad now, and I was at the Cardiff Cross Country at the weekend, and I was just thinking, do you know what? Because I've got a 2.5-year-old grandson. I love the thought in 5-10 years' time, just turning up as a granddad and watching Isaac jog around, So I'm committed to the sport, So, and I'd like, when I do that, the sport to be in a really good place. Just the sport to be in a really good place. So that the sport's buzzing, the sport's thriving, clubs are doing well. And I was even thinking, I wonder what club they'll take. I mean, it's a bit sad, isn't it, when you're a 2.5-year-old and you think, what athletics clubs are you going to go to? So, which is, I mean, he might not want to go to an athletics club, obviously, but his parents are both athletes, and his granddad is. So you want, I'd like, that would be really nice to, go through the door of an athletics club and he gets welcome and it's kind of like a buzzy place and coaching and all that stuff. So I'd like the sport to be strong and well and working at the elite end, but I'd like to start the whole thing to be working,
Yeah, well, here. We're very much behind that. Jack, we know that you are a very busy man, so thank you so much for giving up your time and for answering a few questions for us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. All the best. Cheers then.